Many of you might have seen the musical Hamilton. It is a great musical, and it's an amazing story. I'm a fan. But what about Eliza Hamilton? What happened to her after Alexander's death? Well, today I'm tackling two mystery novels by Mollie Ann Cox that explore exactly that. Hello, and welcome back to the Book Love Podcast, where we go into and beyond the pages in front of us. I'm your host, Matt from Ohio, and today we are talking about the Eliza Hamilton Mysteries by Mollie Ann Cox. The Eliza Hamilton Mysteries by Mollie Ann Cox follow Eliza Hamilton after Alexander Hamilton's death, as she navigates being a widow, finding her place in society, and tracking down the bad guys that have wronged her loved ones, right? There are two novels so far. The newest of them is just now out on bookshelves everywhere for you to enjoy. Both novels are roughly 320 pages, give or take, and are what I would classify as cozy adjacent mysteries, meaning that they are cozy insofar as nothing graphic is ever on the page you're reading, but adjacent because they do get a little darker and a little bit more intense than the typical cozy mystery. Here's what they're about. First book is called The Lace Widow. It was published in 2023. It's about 320 pages, and it follows Eliza Hamilton in the immediate aftermath of her husband's unfortunate death. In the duel with Aaron Burr. But her grieving period is very short-lived when other people associated with that duel began being found dead. And her son is accused of murder. And Eliza learns that Alexander didn't leave the family with any money to live on, Eliza Hamilton befriends some industrious widows in the city and works with them in order to make money and make ends meet. And then, as she takes action to free her son's name from this unfounded accusation. The second book is called The Widow Hamilton, and it is out now. It clocks in at 330 pages and begins a year or two after The Lace Widow. In it, Eliza's friendship with those widows has only deepened. Then, amidst Eliza she sets up the first ever orphanage in New York City. But when she's doing that, two of the widows that she's been friends with go missing. One of whom turns up dead. And Eliza decides to use her considerable social clout to help the widows track down the killer and their missing compadre. Is there enough time to figure it all out, though? That's the question, right? I read them. I loved them. And I know what you're thinking, right? All books sound good when they're teased and condensed like that. Let's tackle this book review in a slightly different way, okay? How do these mystery novels compare to other mystery novels? Here's my take. I thought I didn't think about this at all. But then in order to put it into words, I had to think about it. So it's not just a gut reaction. It is also a mental exercise that I did, right? So if Agatha Christie, Dan Brown, and Kathy Reichs had a book baby, these would be that book baby. I can't really describe it better than that. Because of the time period, the cast of characters, the history, the tension, the Eliza Hamilton mysteries hold up against any other mystery novel I've ever read. And I rated both of these at a 4.5. But like I've said so many times, our ratings don't matter. My 4.5 is going to be your 6 out of 5. My 4.5 is going to be your 2 out of 5, right? Let's talk about some things I wish were done differently, some things I loved, to help explain why I rated them at 4.5s. To do that, I can't guarantee a lack of spoilers. Listen, I do my best to never spoil the plot, but I'll probably talk about some characters and relationships and events that occur. So you've been warned. from here on out, I cannot guarantee to remain spoiler free. Let's firstly discuss some things I wish were done differently. And if I have to dig deep and ask for one single thing to be ever so slightly different, listen, these books touch on some pretty heavy social things, right? Things are just going on in like 1804 New York City that literally went on in 1804 New York City. This isn't a fictional construct, right? I'm talking about things like gender identity, feminism, corporate government institutions, religion, people's struggle with faith versus religious institutions trying to take control of whatever. I think if I'm nitpicking one thing, I think maybe these books could have taken more of a stand or provided stronger opinions on the topics that they discuss. As it is, Eliza Hamilton does, in fact, offer her opinion, but Mollie Ann Cox does so while trying to remain true to the character. And perhaps these could have been stronger opinions. But it's obvious to me that these books were not written as a way to discuss social topics. Any social commentary in these books are definitely a reflection of the time and a reflection of the person that at least this author believed Eliza Hamilton to be. So with that in mind, I wonder if strengthened or even inserted social commentary here might actually be a disservice to the novel instead of enhancing it. So I guess with that in mind, maybe I wouldn't ask the author to change anything. I think the books work pretty perfectly as they are. Things I liked, things that worked really well, things like maybe why you should read this. So first of all, this is a murder mystery. Those are what they are, right? They follow a very typical arc. There's a murder. Our amateur sleuth investigates it and reaches a high water point where the danger is very palpable and things happen. And then the danger starts to resolve as they figure out the mystery. It is what it is. That is the recipe. However, I could not put either of these books down. And here's some reasons why they're just huge page turners, right? The first thing I love about these books is, and I bet you'll love this too, they never spike your anxiety. As I said before, they maintain an impressive balance between historical fiction and cozy mystery. The coziness remains intact where the reader is never forced to read anything graphic, even when they become really tense and dark, especially the second book. The second book is more dark, right? And yet my anxiety never skyrocketed. I never had bad dreams. There was still a feel-good sense to the books as they resolved. And if I'm being honest, it is kind of a perfect marriage, The next thing that I really loved about these books that I want to tell you about in part is how the author handles history. Remarkably deft. It kind of blew my mind in a way, right? History is woven into this narrative so casually that it just is, right? Various facts that most of us would read in textbooks or nonfiction to learn about are just there. I'm talking, how does daily life work? What were various people's relationships and why? What were just, customs that they did, like, around the holidays and stuff? What furniture did they own and why? Where was it positioned? Character backstories, how they grew up, who their parents were. They have siblings. What are those siblings? Who are they? What do they do? All of those things are present in these novels seamlessly. It's impossible for me to figure out where historical fact ends and pure fiction begins. The history feels lived in rather than explained to you. And it makes the books more about the characters and the mystery, not about explaining what it was like in 1804. The third thing I love about these books is how Mollie Ann Cox crafts extremely vivid characters with surprisingly minimal description. I brought this up to Mollie in the interview I did with her. If you want to listen to that, I'll link it here or in the show notes down below, whatever. And she said that's more on me than it is on her, but I think I might disagree with that, right? So there are three main types of characters in these books, right? There are upper class people. There are they're the upper class aristocratic sorts. There are lower class people. And third, there are the in-betweens. They're like the lower class people, but they work for or with the upper class. Mollie Ann Cox has an economy of words that results in the barest of thumbnail sketches for locations and characters. And yet I'm able to so very easily see and hear each of those characters and places in my mind, right? Like the upper class characters, they sit primly. They sip their tea and they speak with that aristocratic, slightly Virginian British accent, spilling passive aggressive niceties to one another, never ever actually saying anything outright. Whereas the lower class characters are very matter of fact. They're down to business. They're just trying to get through their day. They're informal with their tone and inflection. And they have different accents from all over the world. We're talking French, Prussian, English, Spanish, all over the world, right? And the in-betweens, they sound like the lower class, but they speak like the upper class. They have the polished manners where they don't say things outright, and they maintain carefully neutral faces and good posture. Like none of this is written. None of it's written. But I saw all of it in my brain and heard it nonetheless. A fourth thing that I loved is all of the social themes that are touched on. I know I talked about this in the very first section, but throughout both novels, a range of resonant ideas are explored, ranging from trust in institutions, personal faith, gender roles and expectations, social inequality, human trafficking, prostitution, etc. Right? And it really kind of amazed me because I did some historical snooping on my own, and it amazes me how these issues are things we're dealing with today, and how the people of the early 1800s were having the same damn discussions, fighting the same damn fights. And I think these topics are extremely important, and I'm really glad that they're included in a way that makes them a part of history rather than the 21st century being inserted into the 19th century. I think a lot of authors and people will always view history with a hindsight is 2020 lens. And I don't enjoy that, because I think history should be looked at as it was, in the context that it was, with the facts that it was, right? And Mollie Ann Cox does that really, really well. And perhaps the most impressive aspect of these books is the trust the author places in us, the reader. She never tells us what to think. None of her characters know explicitly what the answer is. They have opinions, but no opinion is ever decisive or treated more highly than another opinion. The history of all the topics is used as texture rather than thesis. And that really allows us readers to draw our own conclusions. And Mollie Ann Cox could have done all of this because she simply wanted to tell a fictional story. But having talked to many authors, they rarely do anything that's not purposeful in their books. So that being said, the rhetorical choices in these novels really speak to the author's deep respect for the reader's ability to engage and be thoughtful all on their own. And I think that is extremely refreshing in the current world that we find ourselves living in, that is just full of nothing but polarizing opinions and hatred. But I digress. Should you read these books? Yes. 1,000 times yes. These novels work on so many levels. If you want a cozy mystery, you get it. You don't need to go any deeper than that, and the books don't force you any deeper than that. They are amazing surface level vacation reads if you want them to be. But if you want a book that allows for reflection on social commentary and history, these are amazing. They made me think so much, but like in a good way. I felt compelled to ask the author about them. And like I've mentioned before, you can listen to that interview if you want. I'll link it here or down below or somewhere. And lastly, if you want to read this book as a sort of masterclass in rhetorical choices, like how to create distinct and unique characters, how to use history to create backdrop, how to create character voicing, how to employ minimal words with maximal results, all those things. You can even read these novels, as craft, academic, craft. So my recommendation is to read both of them now, especially since the second one just went on sale. You can find that in all of the typical places, I'm sure. So that is my overview and review of The Lace Widow and The Widow Hamilton by Mollie Ann Cox. And I'm going to go ahead and put a bookmark in it for now. As always, let me know what you thought of these books. What went well for what went well for you? What didn't you like? I would love to know. If you'd like to contact me, work with me, be on the podcast and, talk books, all of my contact information is in the description down below. So until next time, everyone, cheers.